Welcome to Wealth Well Done. Together, we'll cover a wide range of important topics surrounding money and the impact it has on our lives. From the sophisticated and highly valuable planning techniques of the ultra-wealthy to the commonly underutilized biblical teachings. Together, we'll work to improve our relationship with money and our effectiveness in stewarding it well. Here's your host, Eric Scovill.
I want to welcome back to the show Isaac Bennett. He is the visionary leader and founder of the UR family of agencies. Isaac was on for episodes 4 and 5. He was the first interview that we did here. And so Isaac's really specializes in real estate syndications, as well as hard asset royalty streams. And then we have here to my left, Brad Stegall and his partner, Mike Gudat from Acceleration Ventures. That's a real estate holding company and management company. Mike has been investing in real estate, I think we'd say, since about the beginning of time.
Wow. Old guys.
We can start with that right away.
I appreciate being here.
Yeah.
Barely made it up to this.
Brad has, and actually it's Mike as well, but successfully retired from W-2 jobs to make real estate their primary focus. So we have a powerhouse team here to talk about real estate investing and then get into this project that we're working on together. So before we do that, I want to ask some questions of you guys to help our listeners to get to know you better, and also to I imagine these are some things that these are lessons that you guys have learned that would be applicable to other people who are growing in their own real estate development. So, Brad, when is the right time to scale beyond? So obviously we go from this, people often start in real estate from a single family residential, go to duplex into a quadplex, but when is the right time to scale beyond a quadplex?
I think it all comes down to when you're comfortable, right? You need to make sure that your personal finances are in order. You need to make sure that your business is running well. And if in my mind, if there's any level of chaos in what you're currently doing, you need to deal with and fix that chaos before you scale it up anymore. Whether that's bringing in extra employees, extra subcontractors, whatever that may mean to you, make sure that you're comfortable where you're at before you start worrying about where you're going.
How much extra work was it for like that additional building when you went beyond a quadplex? How much extra work was that?
That's what's so funny. You hear on podcasts all the time that it's just as easy to do an 8-plex as it is to do a house. Once you acquire one thing, it's just as easy to do the next. And that's not 100% true. There are parts that are true. You still have one closing. Mm-hmm. And once you understand how to deal with all the prorations and what's going to happen at the closing to make sure that everything's being taken care of properly, that's the case. But you've got 8 people that are going to call you instead of 1.
Right.
And so you just need to make sure that you've got the systems in place to handle that volume. You got 8 bathrooms now instead of just 1 bathroom. So if 2 bathrooms go down at once, who are you going to call to fix them?
Right. It's easy to say we've got 1 roof, which is true. You do have 1 roof, so you can simplify some things with contractors, but
everything else multiplies.
Yeah. And you also, when you get into 8, you now have a culture inside your rental. Whereas before, with a few people, that doesn't really come out as much.
Yeah. If you're doing a bad job, they're not going to tell the other properties that are across town. But if you're doing a bad job with 1 tenant or 2 tenants inside of an 8 unit, the others are going to find out real quickly.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Mike, when is the right time to go into commercial property?
So I think, with in the real estate space, there's multiple streams or multiple opportunities, right? You've got multifamily, which Brad and I are spent a bunch of time in, 30 plus years each in the multifamily space. You got a lot of folks in the RV parks. You've got a lot of different avenues you can go down into to the real estate space. But kind of like Brad said, right? You have to be prepared and have the right systems and processes in place when you move into any adjacent sort of real estate. So let's say, like Brad and I are an example of this, right? So we've got almost 500 multifamily units collectively between us. And then recently, about a year and a half or so ago, we moved into the commercial space with some pretty significant investments in the commercial space. So one of the things that we had in place that actually allowed us to make that leap was proper property management. So we were able to inherit the existing property manager, because Brad and I are not experts in triple net leases and commercial leases and dealing with, national tenants and stuff like that. So one of the things that was really critical for us, for our success moving into commercial, was having somebody that was part of our virtual team, if you want to call it, our property manager, who had very decades of experience in that space. So we were able to put our assets and our ability to get financing and find the deal to work. And she was able to put her expertise in terms of keeping the tenants happy, managing the leases and stuff like that.
But that also doesn't mean that somebody couldn't start in commercial. It's just a matter of at what level they're beginning.
What type of organization requirements? Not the organization of your team, but like actual organizational requirements you have, because commercial tenants have a different expectation than a residential.
I think it's very easy to buy a house or a duplex or a quad and manage it yourself. To do a commercial property, if you don't have training in managing commercial properties, it's going to be a lot tougher. So I think the expectation going in, if your first property is going to be commercial, make sure that you've got a property manager that you know and trust.
Mm-hmm.
But I've known people that have just started off, like their first property, instead of getting a house or a duplex, it was a small commercial building. And then they've just scaled from there.
One of the big differences between residential and commercial is in that lease, right? Your residential lease on a property management side is it's the same on every resident that you're dealing with. On a commercial lease, every lease that you do is unique. So you need to make sure that you either have the expertise in terms of how to negotiate those leases, how to structure those leases, have counsel in place, attorneys in place to help structure those as well. And then again, you want to have a good frontline kind of real estate team, whether it's your property manager or real estate agents who are experts in the commercial space as well.
I just want to make a point here. These guys have not seen these questions. And Mike, when I asked that first question, you jumped in like that was scripted right off the bat. You knew that. So that was impressive. All right. Thank you for those answers. Isaac, actually, you know what? Sorry, let's go back to that one more question, because I have a handful of clients who they own their own practice and they are deciding to try to buy a space that they're going to rent out a third of it themselves, and then obviously rent out the rest to other tenants. What advice do you have for someone there, Mike?
First off, I would say if you're in the financial position to put yourself as your own landlord, I think that's a very, very productive financial position to move into, right? If you can make that leap in terms of owning your own building, where you become a tenant, you become maybe the anchor tenant, and then you have some additional folks. It kind of takes me back to, when my very first investment was a duplex, right? I lived in one side and rented out the other, and I had a roommate. So I lived in essence for free at 22 years old. So it's the same similar thing as a commercial property. If you're a dentist or a chiropractor or whatever, you can own a part of that. And again, work with some proper resources and some proper, team members or experts to help you lease those up, get contracts in place. It's an incredible way to maximize that return on your investment versus pay rent to somebody else.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Isaac, what is the, yeah, throw some good ones at you.
Brains of the operator.
Good to be back. Good to be back.
All right. This one could be a layup for you, but would be difficult to someone else to answer right on the spot. What's the most important rule of investing that you have encountered so far?
Don't lose money. Yeah, I think that right now we're looking at a situation where in September of 2023, you've got a whole lot of people who felt like they were really smart over the past 4 or 5 years that right now are recognizing that the tide has gone out. And, there's a common saying out there right now, sort of tongue in cheek, that's survive until 25. Here's the reality. That's still predicting the future. We have absolutely no idea what 2024, 2025 is going to be. So don't lose money. And there's really only 2 things that you can fix in real estate. That's your entry point, your basis, your cost basis, and your financing. And a lot of people are finding out right now that they didn't think enough about the entry point, or were too liberal with it, or they didn't appreciate fixing the financing. And they are losing money.
Yeah, we are. Actually, let me put that to you instead. Predicting the future here. What do you anticipate the real estate market looks like as these 2 issues between people's basis and their financing begin to, as the tide goes out, you see who's swimming naked. What do you anticipate the real estate is going to start looking like here in the next couple of years?
I try not to anticipate. I try to prepare. And I think preparation for that looks like putting away resources in times of plenty. You may have 7 years of plenty, putting away resources during those times for when the 7 years of drought come up. And I think 2022 was the first of, I don't know if it's 7 years or 70 years or 17 months, but that was the start of the drought. So the people who will succeed in this are those who have put away resources during the good times and then can be strategic and advantageous during the tough times. And a lot of that's going to look like, do you have cash or can you access cash? Because it's going to be so much harder. It already is so much harder to get financing.
Yeah. Okay. Yesterday I was at an outing and listening to a fairly new business owner talk about how in the winter they had a business that excels in the winter. Like, we were just printing money, and now here they are in the summer and they're struggling to survive. Well, what did you do with the money when you were printing it? Because everyone at that point, even if they're trying to be good business owners, they might just say, well, I'll just reinvest. I'm going to reinvest all this, but never thinking about the fact that they need to keep cash on hand for a drought. So yeah, I think you're right there. Okay.
I think, to Isaac's point, I think the most successful folks who are going to make it through whatever the journey looks like, having a properly aligned balance sheet, that's right sized to the risk that you've taken on is critically important, right? There's nothing worse, whether it's somebody has a duplex and they have to have a $10,000 roof that needs to get fixed and they got $2,000 in the bank, or you've got $100 million in real estate and you've got some catastrophe that happens and you got $10 in the bank. I think having that ability to withstand any sorts of storms is one of the critical differences between those who have and those who have not kind of deal in terms of preparing for the future.
Yeah.
If I can just add a point to that too, there's a fascinating research piece out there that I can't quote off the top of my head, but the research centered around what investors, and this is more equities focused, but what investors had performed the best over a long period of time. And I think the result of that was shocking. It wasn't sector specific. It wasn't allocation specific between stocks, bonds, real estate, or equities. It was specific to position sizing. And that's Mike's point. Mike's point is your balance sheet and your investments are position sized appropriately for the things that you're doing. This is an incredibly nuanced topic that we could probably have a whole podcast on, but just go look at one book that I could reference is Thinking in Bets by Annie Duke. It's all about position sizing in poker, but it's applicable as well to the investment world. And I think if you can get that down, you're probably never going to go bankrupt. And if you can survive, that's the first thing you have to do to grow wealth is you have to survive.
Yeah. I mean, as an asset manager on the investment side, people are wanting to make sure that 98 or 99% of their money is that's inside a portfolio is invested, and missing out on the point, to maximize the efficiency of every dollar. But the problem is they don't have cash ready to be opportunistic or to protect.
To strike, if you will, presents itself, right? So, Brad and I, we take a very conservative approach to underwriting deals and to going after opportunities. And that allows us to keep some of the powder dry, right? Mm-hmm. So when something does occur and somebody does come to us with an interesting opportunity, we can respond to that in an appropriate fashion. But that also we're not going to put ourselves in a position of over your skis, if you will, right, in terms of putting those out, those monies to work.
Okay.
And I just keep thinking about discipline when all of these topics, you just have to remain disciplined. The poker book, I haven't read it, but I'm sure you got to be disciplined. So when this happens, you do this. You just have to make sure that you don't get yourself into bad situations.
Yeah. Yep. Applies to all sorts of investing. Okay. Last one here, Brad. What would it take for you to sell a really good property?
A really good price. This is an interesting topic that you bring up because before Mike and I were business partners, I hadn't sold anything. I was buy, hold forever. And that's what I was going to do. And for me, it was part of my retirement plan. I was working a day job. I had these properties on the side and I was going to get them paid off. By the time I retired, I'd have this nice passive income. It would supplement my 401k. And that was it. That's the only way that I looked at things. And then back in 2020, in the middle of COVID, Mike and I bought an apartment building. And 1 year later, Mike says, we need to sell. I'm like, no, this property is great. We've increased the value. Let's just hold on to it. And it was, in that moment, I had the decision to trust Mike and trust his instincts or stick with the old way that I'd been doing things. And I'm glad we sold it because we sold it for, 50% profit. And then we were able to 1031 that we turned the 24 units into 112 units. And so Mike's all about being opportunistic. And I think if the price is right for the sale, don't get hung up on trying to hold things forever.
All right.
Because you got to look at what you can do with that.
Fantastic advice. Okay, let's switch. We're going to switch into a little bit about Belize now. And then for those of you listening, next week we are going to come in and do another round of questioning for these guys. I think the insight that you guys have is incredibly valuable to myself and to others who are looking to get in this game. Okay, so Belize. For those of you who don't know, Central America, but it's just south of Mexico. It's about 250 miles south of Cancun, obviously on the Atlantic side of the ocean there. It also has this incredible island called the Ambergris Caye. I'm just going to go ahead and spell that for anyone listening. So Ambergris, and then Caye is Caye. So Ambergris Caye is this gorgeous island off the coast. If you look at an aerial view of that, you'll see that traditional blue water, that gorgeous water that is known in the Caribbean. And so, Isaac, you've been investing in Belize for about how long?
I've been there since 2017 and made my first deal in 2018.
Okay. All right. And so these are all ground up projects that you've done.
Yeah.
You definitely gave me the FOMO, the fear of missing out the first time you started talking to me about this. Like, I got to figure out how to get in Belize. And so, anyways, I wanted to talk a little bit about why Belize as a tourist. What is so attractive to those of you who have not been to Belize, or to those of us who haven't? Help us understand.
As a tourist?
As a tourist first.
That's interesting because I've never gone there as a tourist.
Why do tourists want to go?
Something deeply sad about me. But as a tourist, you're talking about a tropical climate. Think Cancun. It's basically Cancun's climate. There is the second largest world's Great Barrier Reef there that actually is parallel. It's adjacent to Ambergris Caye. And it's an unbelievably beautiful reef. So think snorkeling, diving, fly fishing, surfing, all of these things that you can do. It's very typical as far as a tourist destination. But some things that might not be as obvious as the sun and the sand and the play, right, are it's English speaking, which for somebody who may only speak English, that's a huge benefit because you go there, you're never confused about what it is. The Belizean dollar is pegged 2-to-1 to the US dollar, and everywhere takes US dollars. So it's very convenient to be able to go in and out. Ambergris Caye specifically is very safe. So you can walk around at night, you can do pretty much anything, anywhere, and be safe. And as we found out in many places in Mexico right now, that's just not the case.
Right.
The last thing I would say from a tourist perspective is it's still on the ascendancy. And so if you're looking for something that is a little more off-grid, and it's not like roughing it, I mean, there's some really nice places you can stay. But if you're looking for something that is not as touristy, it's not just T-shirt and flip-flop shops all over the place, this is the place to go. It's very different from Cabo or somewhere like that, where it's not really flush with tourists yet.
Okay. And anyone listening can understand how Isaac's mind, even when he thinks about tourism, there's definitely an investment side of that, which we'll spill right into that too. So
Isaac, next time you need to go fishing or something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Go check
I
out
don't know about all that stuff.
the Blue Hole. If you want to look it up online, like search the Blue Hole and you just
there are some famous places.
There's some incredible water sports. This is the water sports.
You got your Isaac out.
Scuba diving is one of the best places in the world to go scuba diving as well. So, all right, why Belize as an investment? So you got this one.
Yeah. So when I look at real estate, I think of real estate as being a liability. Okay. And that is probably very contrary to many of the things that you've heard, but all real estate is a liability. It's all a liability. The value in real estate is what real estate can do. And to create an asset. And the asset is the lease that you put inside real estate. The future series of cash flows that real estate can create via a lease is the value. And if you doubt me on this, go buy a commercial building with a tenant that has 6 months left on their lease and let it expire and then see what happens over the next 6 months as you try to bring in a new tenant. You very quickly have a liability. All real estate's a liability. So then when you're looking for real estate to buy, what are you looking for? There's no such thing as an appreciating market or a depreciating market. There's only markets that have higher or lower future streams of cash flow based on many different things: population, growth, areas, improvements, gentrification, taxes, tax planning, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Crime, jurisdiction, many things that we're not allowed to talk about from fair housing laws, all of these things that play into the idea of whether a property can create more or less future cash flow, right? Mm-hmm. When I look at Belize, very long-winded answer to get to the point of saying why Belize. When I look at Belize, I see a structural design, and it has literally been designed this way by the Belizean government, to their credit. They became a country in 1981. They have designed this to say, we want to attract guys like Brad and Mike. We want to attract them. So what have they done? They have said, okay, we're going to make it easy to develop with very few permits or very few requirements on zoning and things of that nature. There are permitting and zoning, but they're thoughtfully and structurally done to be advantageous for the investor. They said, we want to make this a very attractive destination for tourists, very low crime. Let's take our best areas and make sure they're well policed and thought through, that there's very low crime. They said, we want to have very low taxes. So the real estate taxes in Belize barely exist. It's about $100 per room, per bedroom, per year. Okay, so you have a nice 3-bedroom house, you're going to pay about $300 a year in taxes. A 3-bedroom house in Peoria, where we live, I mean, I have a 3-bedroom house.
$600 a day.
It's $6,000 a year. So it's 20 times as expensive, right? So not even comparable. They have very little rental income tax, which says it's 1.5% rental income tax per year. It's almost nothing, right? So you have all of these factors. The Belize dollar, as I've already said, is pegged 2-to-1 to the US dollar. Now, if we're really in a fourth turning, if things are really about to get very unstable in the United States, you may have your own opinion on that. I have my own opinion. Then Belize can actually unpeg their dollar to the US dollar. So if we have hyperinflation or our debt load becomes so great that we can't service our debts without printing, which is true, it's where we're at today,
sure,
then they can unpeg their dollar. So they've prepared for the future in that way. And then the final thing that I would say is it's an insanely beautiful location that people who like to go on vacations, I guess those people exist, they love to go. They love to go there, and they love to go there because it's simple. There's wonderful food, wonderful people. They speak English, and the price point to approach it is still very approachable. They also have wonderfully advantageous laws for people who want to gain citizenship or gain permanent residence there. We might go into that at another time. I think I've probably given you enough so far, but these are many of the reasons why I think Belize is an extremely attractive to be for the long term.
Eric, I'm glad you didn't ask me that question because I could not have given you that answer.
No, Isaac is the man for that. All right, so we're going to go ahead and with the time we have left, on the next episode, we're going to come back and talk more about Mahogany Bay and just the overall reasons why we are doing what we're doing there. But let's talk a little bit about the investment that we have so far. So I want to maybe, Brad, ask you to describe a little bit about what we're doing and what someone should know, because we'll spend maybe 5 more minutes talking about this, and then we'll go into a lot more detail in the next episode.
Yeah. So what we've done is we've secured 3 lots within the Mahogany Bay development, and we're going to develop 2 5-bedroom houses and then a 3-bedroom house that can be keyed off. And essentially, what we're doing is building beautiful properties inside of a community that is just mind blowing. How awesome it is. And we're going to do short-term rentals down there. And there's a lot of demand for short-term rentals. Yep. And in addition to that, we chose to do 2 of the 5-bedroom houses because there aren't a lot of options down there for the bigger houses, so that people can take big groups down or big families. So that's what we're looking to do.
Yeah, and then these are man-made peninsulas. Think a little bit of like the Palm Islands in Dubai. These are man-made peninsulas. They're off the coast of Belize and on this incredible island. Isaac, when you talk about the investment in themselves, like what does someone who's interested in this need to understand about what we're doing?
I think the first thing to understand is that it may seem to be very risky. And it's actually interesting because I just sold the first development that we did in Mahogany Bay. It's just about 500 yards from where we're developing these. And there's a lot of nuance to Belize to know before you go in. So I'm very glad that this is essentially our 5th development down there. But I would not view it in the short term as a cash flow market. I would view it as a market that is generating a lot of interest over the long term and has a lot of future catalysts to create amazing cash flow. But for the time being, it's more about establishing a foothold as irreplaceable property. Mm-hmm. This is property that 10 years from now, you're going to look back and say, how in the world did we get that for this cost basis? Because it's still pretty approachable. And we're building amazing, gorgeous homes very affordably. And it's on the water. It's a 5-minute boat ride from the open blue seas. It's going to have a private beach club. It has a private pool club. It's irreplaceable. And I think that is the first thing to really think about. The other thing to think about is we're not doing this with any debt, right? So the cash flows that will be generated are almost entirely accretive to someone's cash flow. And so from a risk standpoint, I think we've taken out 90% of the risk of what would normally be in a development like this where people are using a lot of leverage. We're using none just for that reason to lower the risk.
Okay. And so what's the raise?
About 4.5 million total.
Okay. And
is that what you meant?
Yeah. Yep. No, that's exactly it. So from this standpoint, where we're at, by the time these episodes are released, we will have been a few weeks into the raise here. So this is going to be raising 4.5 million. It's going to be on a first come, first served basis there. There are extra benefits for someone who is choosing to invest at a higher level. Minimum investment is $100,000. At $300,000, there are some additional perks to the investment. But outside of that, we are looking for the money to come in to help us get started with construction. The architectural plans are done. Utilities are there on the street. We are ready to start the construction here. Contractors are ready to go. So from that standpoint, we are going to begin this raise. We've already released that to a select group of investors, and then that's going to continue to get released out to everyone here. So if you're interested in understanding more about this, we're going to do a lot more information on this on the next episode, but you might just want to go ahead and reach out to one of us sooner than that. So you can get a hold of us. You can get a hold of us on our website, storehouseassets.com. is the peoplebrand.com. Mike and Brad at accelerationventures.com, right? Okay, so you can get a hold of any of us here, and we'd be happy to get you more information. But thanks for listening, and we'll be back next week.
Thank you again for listening to Wealth Well Done. Be sure to subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast player, and together we'll continue to improve our relationship with money and our effectiveness in stewarding it well.